Hi, today we're going to take a look at an advanced feature of the i1Pro2 in combination with the i1 Profiler software, namely the OBC, also known as Optical Brightener Compensation. What is Optical Brightener Compensation? It is a way of compensating for the effect that UV light has on some media types. Now, to demonstrate that more clearly, let me show you an image. This is actually a picture I took of this little swatch book. It's just a little swatch book of media types. It's all kinds of different inkjet media types, ranging from proofing media to fine art media to photo papers. Every type of paper is in here. So what I did, I took a picture of that. Well, nothing fancy about that. This is just done with normal ambient light. I did the same picture with UV light. So I had a special light which is mostly emitting UV light. It's a kind of lamp that is used for determining if money is real or counterfeit. So what you see here is that there is a huge difference in how the white of the media lights up in UV light. And that happens also on a lot of prints. Depending on the amount of UV light that is in your ambient light, you will get a different color on a media type that has more optical brighteners. So the effect that you see of the blue hues in here is caused by optical brighteners. Why are they in there? Well, they make the media appear to be more white. But in UV light, they also give a different bluish hue. So if your light contains more UV light, the media will be appearing to be more blue. So your entire color balance shifts, which is not a good thing. And the i1Pro2 allows you to compensate for that by measuring both with the UV filter off and on, and then calculating what the effect is of the UV light on the measurement. So let's see how that works in detail. We're going to launch the i1 Profiler software. And the OBC function is only available in advanced, so we're going to switch to advanced. And it's only available with two devices from X-Rite, that being the i1Pro2. So the i1 Pro, the older version, does not allow you to do that. And the i1 Icc allows you to do it. That's the most expensive one, the table that automatically can do measurement without you moving any rulers. Most of you will not have that device because it's too expensive. And frankly it is, because you can do the same thing now with the i1Pro2. So the only way you could get your money out of an i1 Icc is if you have to do a lot of profiling. So if it's your job to do profiles, and you do those on a daily basis, you might get a benefit out of the Icc because it's faster than the i1Pro2. Okay, we're going to do a OBC profiling, so we're going to select that. And we have to choose a number of patches. Well, we'll stick to the default by now, for now, 729 patches, which is more than enough. We could scramble them. It doesn't really make a difference because it will be printed. It's fairly random anyway. You could scramble the patches. The advantage of scrambling patches is that some older printers had difficulty with printing one page of the same color. The print head would heat up and it would get more of that ink on the paper than it should. So if you scramble them, they all sort of blend, and then you have the same mix of red, green and blue throughout the page. So that's what that's for. So I'm not going to do that now. I'm going to stick to the standard one and go to the next step. And then we have to choose the device, of course, so either the Icc or the big Icc or the Pro2. So in this case the Pro2. We have to choose a paper size. We're going to choose A3, so the entire target fits on one page. And we're going to use the default layout for the patches because you don't want them different. With hit print, you would normally do this, then i1 Profiler will create a printout for you using no color management, because you want to be creating a profile with OBC, so the color management will be switched off in your driver. I've already done that, so the result of the print would be this. So that's what it looks like. So we act as if we've already printed that, then we go to next. Then we of course need to start measuring the output, so we'll use the table for that. And we'll just slide it in here in the center, place the ruler on top, and calibrate the device. Of course, you need to open up the sliding thingy on the holder so it can actually measure the reference tile, which is logical. And note now that it's in its dual scan mode, so it's doing more than one measurement per patch, so it can do two measurements, one with and one without UV filtering. So we'll leave that as it is. The other thing we want to set is what kind of printer information it is. Well, in this case it was printed on an RGB based printer, and the paper was actually a glossy paper. So that's just tags you set in the profile. It doesn't change what the software will do, but it just sets tags so you know what you've been doing. So we now measure each of these. We're going to speed that up in the recording so you don't have to watch that because it's boring to watch, but let me just get to measuring them. So take the device, place it on the ruler, and start measuring from row 1. Okay, that was the last measurement. So we've done all the measurement in both directions using the UV filter on and off. It was switched off and on each pass going back and forth. So next step is to generate a gray chart, because the effect that a UV light has on a media type with optical brightener is clearly visible in a gray color. So the easiest way to compensate for that is to actually print gray colors. So you would hit the right paper type, so matte or glossy, and generate your gray chart, and you can do that, generate it. So now from the measurements it's doing the right colors to see most of the effect of your optical brightener, because it knows what the effect is from the measurements, but it wants you to tell the software which one you find best in the ambient light that you're in. So you print this one, and what that actually makes is a printout like this. So that is just a visual gray balance. It goes from a neutral gray to a more warm gray on each of the colors, and it's more clearly visible in real life than it will ever be on camera. But there is a definite difference between the cool one at the top and the lower one at the bottom. Now, each of those are indicated by a letter from A to S, and each of these strips is a different gray tone. So what you do is you start using the color checker proof as a reference. So I just placed that one on here so you can still see it. And we take the color checker proof, which comes with the i1 profiler solution and the i1Pro, and in there is the color checker chart. Now that's a chart with little holes in it, so you can place it over a printout and then compare the printout to the reference chart. Now, to not get the other colors to influence what you see, because you've seen in the basic color video that I've done that colors around an image will greatly determine the color you perceive, you will place it into a little holder that they provide, which just shows the patches that you need to see for the gray balance. So I'm just going to put that in here. And now the rest of the colors are blocked off. So all you see is the gray. And those are the 4 gray colors that were actually used to print this gray chart. So what you now do is you just place the chart on there and compare in color visually in the ambient light where you will be viewing your output. So this would not be the most ideal light, but normally you'd use a norm light like a D50 light, a 5000 Kelvin light, or you'd go to the place where you will be viewing your images finally, and you just compare each of the patches to each of the individual printed ones. So the one that matches best you choose. So I'm not going to do that exactly now because it's hard to do here. I'll just do it roughly. So I know these are too cool. This is too warm, so I'm going to be somewhere in the middle. I think this one, which is H, so I'm going to set the first one at H. Then the second one, again the one at the bottom is too warm. One at the top is a bit too neutral, so I'm going to go for somewhere J. Third one, more at the top for this one, so I'd say something like D. And the last one, the darkest one, let's say E. Now this is slightly open to interpretation. The effect of the optical brightener will be worse on a media type that has more optical brighteners. So the good photo papers do not have a lot of optical brighteners in them. They have some, but not a lot. So it's harder to see the difference. If you use a really UV sensitive light with lots of optical brightness, media type with lots of optical brightness, you will see a big difference, and you will easily get the one that actually matches, because the other ones will be greatly out of balance. So we can, after choosing the right values, we can go to the next step. Then we choose the ambient light that we will be viewing the images at, the printed images at. So that's by default at D50. If you should have another known ambient light because you measured it there, or you know what kind of light they're using, you can choose that also, but normally you'd stick to D50 because that's the default proofing light. And you choose next again, and then you have your Icc Profile Settings. So I can set my perceptual rendering intent to a colorful or saturation. I don't want to change that. The tables I can set to optimize quality. I am creating a profile because I want quality. The option to choose optimize size, I don't get it much, because why would you care how big your Icc profile is? I just want a good profile, not a small one. So I optimize for quality. And you have the option to do a different chromatic adaption and a different Icc version, so 2/4. If your software supports it, go for version 4. If you don't know exactly what these chromatic adaptions are, and even if you do, I'd still suggest you leave it to Bradford, because that's the most commonly used one. It's not default without a reason. And the profile white point should be the default one. If you want to match a white point from a media measurement, you can do that too. You can just measure a white point from a media type and then enter that value from a saved value. Here I will just stick to the default one. And the next step would be actually to name your profile. So I'm going to call this one I1. This is on the Z3200 printer, and it's done with a satin photo, and it's an OBC corrected profile. I'll just put that in. I'm saving it to my Documents Profiles folder as well as a hot folder, and I'm saving it into my own system folder for profiles. So I'll create it, So it will now generate a profile just based on the normal 719 measurements it done, but it will also compensate for the choices I made in gray balance. So it will be slightly compensated for the optical brightener that might be there in my media type. It might not give you a big difference if you choose to do it this way over non-UV corrected, but you definitely know that if you do it this way, you have corrected for it and you are doing the utmost to get the correct colors in the ambient light that you will be viewing your images at. If you don't know the ambient light, it's not very sensible to do optical brightener correction, because depending on the light, they will have a lot of UV light in their ambient light or none. So if you don't know the amount of UV light they have in their ambient light, there's no way of compensating. But do realize that every light source does have a certain amount of UV light. The sun does, but even tube lights or fluorescent lights do, and LED lights even have some UV radiation. Depending on the type, you'll have more or less, so you get more or less of the blue effect during the measurements. So it's a good thing to compensate for, and it is just a nice addition that you can now do it with the i1Pro2, because before you needed the most expensive device out there that was not very practical for most customers to buy. So the result is shown here. So it's just a profile. It's a fairly big color range that it has. It's a nice paper and it's a 12 color printer, so it has a pretty big color space. And it's basically done and it's saved, so we have a profile now. Now to use this profile, that would be the same as every other profile. So you just have something that is now capable of doing a correction for optical brighteners. So that's it for now. We can of course verify this profile with the color checker proof. So we can make a printout and then actually have a printout and compare that to the result that we would finally get. So I've done that. So this is the result of the color checker proof. So if you go there, choose it. You choose the profile you just did, so select it. You can have an indicator show which color was out of gamut. Now all of the colors are in gamut because it's a nice paper. The only color that's out of gamut is a really light one, and that has to do with the color of the paper itself. If you're supposed to measure white, and the color white of your paper is usually different from the white of your color checker proof, you will never get the same white, obviously. So you need a proofing paper to get the white to match exactly. So in most photo papers, your white would have a gamut indicator. And on a matte paper, where your color range is smaller, like the one I have here, you get more warnings. If I select that, you see a lot of patches are now out of range in gamut for this media type. So selecting that one again, you do a print. So what it then does, it generates a print with an image that has the profile embedded into the image, and because your or the profile information is embedded, so because your printer is then using that profile information, it will do the compensation according to that profile, and then you will have a result where you can take your color checker proof and just place it, the mask, over the printout, and you can compare each of the colors. Show that to that camera. You can compare each of those colors and see if there is a big difference in any of those colors. Now there should not be a noticeable difference in any of those colors. If there is a really noticeable color difference, you should get a warning message here that it's out of range usually. But if you do get one, it means your profile is not accurate yet. So that's how you use the color checker proof to verify that the profile you did does actually make sense. Make sure that you judge that in ambient light that is the same as the profile you did. Because if you make the profile for a D50 light and you check it against a 3000 Kelvin light, your colors will not be exactly correct. It's very clear. So that's how you use that. So in conclusion, i1Pro2 allows you to compensate for optical brighteners in your media, which is a nice feature. If you buy really good photo papers, you will not need it much, but it still allows you to compensate for the little effect that the color of light has on your colors. So it's a good thing to be able to compensate if you want to, and it's only available in this device or even more expensive ones. So good option, fairly easy to use, a bit more work, and you do have to judge the gray balance visually. So it might be slightly slightly less neutral than measuring just with the device itself. But that's the only way you can tell, because you want to have a gray balance that to your eye is neutral. And one thing your eye is pretty good at is noticing a difference from gray with your eyes over the pure gray. So when gray is not gray but slightly more yellow or red or slightly more warm or cold, you will be able to see that. So that's how you do that. Later on I will make a video comparing the effects of an optical brightener profile and a non-optical brightener profile on a really optical brightener sensitive type of media to show you the difference in results as a measurement. But that's outside the scope of this video. So this was it for this topic. If you have any questions or remarks, feel free to contact us. And for now, thank you for watching.